Hi, this is János, it's Real World Audio, and I'm talking now about the liveness of the cabinet, how much it counts, and when you change it, what you can expect. So this will be advice for you also on choosing the material of the cabinet. So what's going to be a difference if you choose a harder non-live material for the sides, or if you go for thicker materials versus thinner materials. And so now here it comes, is that I did an experiment, and that experiment was inspired by Eduard Brockman's video on his Voice of Lancelot speaker, when he used pieces of foam, like foam insert, that he stuck in the slot of his Voice of Lancelot in the big speaker, and then with that he can alter, not just he but everyone can alter the tuning frequency of the port. So basically what happens is that when it is inserted into the port, then it blocks out part of it, so it has to run the whole length of the port, and then the air has a much narrower space to go through, and when it becomes narrower, the tuning frequency gets higher. So yes, that's maybe not what some of you might expect. You would think if the port is bigger, then it's deeper. No, it's the other way around. The narrower the port is, the deeper the tuning frequency given the same length. Yes, so that's what's happening. You can stick in pieces of foam to block out the port, to make it to give it a lower tuning, but and it works really well in the Voice of Lancelot and with any cabinet that has the inactive cabinets. So actually for Eduard's Voice of Lancelot it worked very well, and it would work with mine as well, because the slot is inside the cabinet. So if I would stick something in there, it doesn't alter the resonant properties of the side baffles. However, in this case, the side wall of the slot port is the baffle of the slot port as well. So anything I stick in there, it changes the tuning frequency, and it also alters the resonant properties of the cabinet. And in this case, this is absolutely catastrophic in regards to the bass, because actually the bass response, the tuning of the cabinet did not become lowered, but it just resulted in the collapse of the deep bass. So what I was doing is that I have a test CD with test tones on it that goes from 100 Hz down to 15 Hz in about really fine increments, that below 30 Hz becomes basically like 1 Hz steps, or even less than 1 Hz steps. And then I was using an app to detect the sound. So I would just show my phone here. Let's see, it focuses there. So here we go. Tuner T1, that's the name of the app, and I click on it, and here you see, if I speak, when it hears a sound, it will tune to it. But if it's too quiet, then it won't tune it. So actually it's also a measure. If the sound that is detected is not loud enough, it will not latch onto it. So now, as you see, it's not detecting everything, because I'm not giving it a constant tone like no. So if you see there's a constant tone, it can detect right away, but if it's changing, it cannot recognize a single sound, so that's why it won't give any reading. So I was using that app to measure the output in the bass, and not the amount of the output, but how low the cabinet can go. So when I had the cabinet like this without stuffing, and I placed my phone in front of the cabinet. Actually, I placed it at the height of the driver, close to the driver, and then I was looking at it. In that case, without stuffing, it had no problem reading down to 25 Hertz. So as the test tones were getting lower and lower, it was reading clear frequencies down to 25 Hertz. And when I put the stuffing in the port, now the situation, so this stuffing, one here and one there, so like they go in there. You see, at the end I made them a little, well, kind of like rounder, so that give it a little bit more aerodynamic advantage, which was really didn't do much in this case. However, with those stuffing in there, actually the lowest note that the tuner could read out was 31 Hertz, and below 31 Hertz it was losing it and couldn't latch onto the frequencies, and also listening confirmed it that the deep bass just was much shallower than without tuning. So this is kind of controversial, because the ports should work to quite a bit deeper, almost 10 Hertz deeper than than with these bigger ports. However, why are we getting problems with the bass? And that's because we were disrupting excuse me, we were disrupting with the dampening property of these little shims on the side, because they not only change the tuning frequency of the cabinet, but they also deadened the side walls, so they acted as a very strong dampening agent. And that extra dampening that prevented the cabinet from being a passive radiator, and that's why we did not hear the lower bass. So actually it was still doing something below 31 Hertz, but the tuner did not register it as a clean note. It was something smear, and it tried to latch on to all sorts of frequencies, but it was ultimately unsuccessful. And also when I was listening to it, the clarity and the impact that sound was being produced disappeared below 32 Hertz. While when without that stuffing, all those sound notes going down to 25 Hertz were clear, very nice and clear sounds, and actually kind of astonishing coming from such a smallish cabinet with those really tiny drivers. Hearing like crystal clear 25 Hertz coming out of a cabinet. So what else happened, and why is this a video about the liveliness of the cabinets? It is because when I did the stuffing, I just stuffed the slot port of one unit at a time and then let it play. So the other was of course there on its own stand, and this one here on its stand. Stuffing and no stuffing on the other side. And what I noticed two things. There was improvement and there was unimprovement as well, in two different categories. So the immediate thing that I noticed that there was an increase in the clarity of the sound. So the sound also became a little bit clearer, a little bit more in focus, and as you would say, more audiophile. However, to my astonishment, this came at a very high cost. And the cost was much quieter sound. So it seemed that it's quieter by at least 3, 4, maybe 5 dBs quieter than the other side. And listening to them, so when I had it, of course, now it's just sitting on the floor, but the two speakers were here, and this side, the image was so big that it radiated the whole room, and it felt as if the sound is coming from the big speaker, and that's creating the sound. And on this sound, the sound stage was collapsed, and it really appeared like a smallish cabinet is giving the sound. And someone just turned the volume control significantly down on that side, or just someone really knocked the balance control really significantly out of balance. And however, at first I welcomed that little increase in clarity, but also it was really noticeable that the sound stage has collapsed, that the bass, really, the precision of the bass was completely gone. So anyway, I did the treatment on both speakers and then let them run that way. And I was greeted with a more audiophile sound. So that's the sound you get when you have your usual traditional commercial speakers. And that's why people use inert cabinet materials, because that gives that artificially sharp focus for your listening experience. And actually I welcomed that experience in the beginning, and was and it seemed like it was a good choice, although I was pretty much disturbed by the problems in the bass, the deep bass that appeared. So now the speaker didn't play so deep, it just played like a meh, and also it didn't fill the room anymore, it just filled a smallish area in the room. But also I noticed that there was something gone from the sound. It became more like an industrial sound, and it became just like one of the many speakers that you can pick from the store, and yeah, it sounds perfect, it sounds, yeah, no, you cannot find any fault with them. But after a month, maybe a year, maybe a week, maybe a day, you are just so bored with it that you are looking for the next best thing. And that is because it has no soul, no life. It's just trying to be a copycat, creating the image of the era for you that is, you know, just coming from every commercial design. And the problem is that it's a commercial design, but that they are forced to cater to a certain flavor of experience. And if you are looking for that, then really there's no reason at all to build La Grande or Le Petit for you, because there's like hundreds of DIY cabinets or commercial cabinets you can choose from to get the that mainstream sound. But what I did is that, no, Kintaro, don't, hey, he's walking, don't step on the driver. Nelly, I need help. Kintaro, dear, okay, we want to prevent an accident there. He did not step on the driver, but I don't want him to do that. Anyway, we have a star today, a guest who has appeared, who came in from the garden. He already did his rounds, and I just leave the camera there to make sure Kintaro doesn't do any more of his high impact walks down there on the cabinet. So anyway, you see there's like unexpected dangers lurking to speakers. So anyway, I went into a rant about this thing. So actually when I took out those slots that were supposed to be acting as tuning elements to decrease the tuning of the cabinet, and while in effect they should have decreased the tuning frequency of the port itself, but by experience the majority of the bass is not provided by the port, it's provided by the passive resonance of the cabinet itself. And yeah, and if you decrease the passive resonant properties of the cabinet, it's going to affect the sound much more than playing around with the port. So that's one thing. But also the other thing about this experience is that when you go and you choose a thicker material or harder wood or non-resonant wood, then, or you go with an MDF cabinet, then that liveliness, that big sound is going to be much less than what the speakers can reproduce with a live cabinet like the one built here. And actually some of you would say that okay, but La Grande was made with MDF and it still produces a huge sound. And I say to that yes, actually when I was dampening it, it still made a reasonably big sound, but compared to its size, it was still much bigger, even bigger than the Mirage did, which is a much bigger speaker with two 8-inch woofers per side. But compared to even that sound, this fully active sound is just 1 or 2 steps above. And when I took out those shims from the slot ports, then the change in the sound was just so night and day that despite that that unevenness or that little bit of less control that the cabinet was doing, that negativity for me was still something that did not count nearly as much as their ability to completely fill the room and have that really gut-touching, gut-wrenching deep bass, and not just some fluffy, floppy deep bass. So, and that's what you are getting with Le Petit as well, that you have mid bass, clear mid bass, but no deep bass. And part of it is the dampening of the cabinet and the MDF. So when you use the MDF, then that part is even more apparent, so it will push the sound even more to the more like clear sound, but more polite sound. So here they sound like a wild Mustang, and actually a lot of that unevenness that I noticed, that when the ports are not filled, that was when I just used those shims under the cabinet. So once I moved the cabinet off the floor onto those small stands, then most of that unevenness was gone. So basically what happened is that the evil was not the aliveness of the cabinet that was responsible for that lack of clarity, but the fact that the speakers were sitting very close to the floor, and the floor reflections were affecting the cabinet and smearing the sound. But now that it's getting further away to the cabinet, that smearing is almost gone. And I would think that if I would put it into an even taller stand, that would be even more, the trend would continue. And I will try it later on with taller stands. I have a pair of taller stands, I just need to get them from the attic. So that's it for now, is that the liveliness of the cabinets, the liveness is just, I think it's just absolutely crucial to give the voice of La Grande that they have, and anything you do to make it more rigid, to make it more dead, more inert, will take away the best part of the sound that this speaker can give to you. And so for those of you who want clarity and life, what is the solution? Well, I think there is one solution, and that is because they are not finished yet. So these cabinets do not have a sole yet. So what is a sole? It's a device used in the violin. It's also called as a sound post. And it is basically a piece that connects the faceplate to the rear plate, so the front and the rear baffles. And in this case, when we translate it to a loudspeaker, it would be a piece of wood, a shim, that holds the back of the driver to the back of the back panel. So that piece is not there yet, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to hear them how they sound without that, let them break in without, and then I put in the sole, which will be a tunable sole. So actually that sole thing, if you look at the Oscillions, they use it already. So this is not something that was never tried in loudspeaker technology, and there's other speakers that use, they just call in most places as a brace, like bracing the driver to the backside. But when you have a sole, it's not bracing the driver, it's coupling the resonances of the driver basket to the backside of the panel. So the intent is the exact opposite. So we don't want to cancel the effect out, we want to couple the resonance to the backside. And here what I will do is the sole will be tunable, so I can tune it and I can tune the pressure. So we had long discussions on the screws and what is the torque that we are torquing it down, how tight the material, etc. And there I just showed you guys what I'm doing to reach a reasonable consistency with the tightness of the screws, but it's not a perfect method. That's what I use now. You could probably figure out something much better for yourself. However, how I will try, what I'm thinking, what will really solve the issue and will make the impact, how exactly is the tightness of the screws, a much less significant issue, because the sole will be the one that will define the tension in both the front and rear baffles, but that's a topic of another video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you got inspiration whether you build La Grande, Le Petit, or any other speaker. Bye bye.